A very good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's webinar, where we're welcoming 3 new members to the CLIA family. But before we get going, I just have a couple of bits of housekeeping for you. So we'll be recording the webinar and we'll look to share it a little bit later on this week on the CLIA website. And even though you'll be in listen-only mode for the duration of the webinar, we'd still like you to contact us with any comments or questions that you have. So this morning we'll be using the questions section in GoToWebinar, and that's situated on the right of your screen. And if you click into the questions icon, a text box will open up, and that will make it easier to add any questions that you have. So please do submit any relevant questions or comments you have, and we'll try and cover as many as we can at the end of the session. If your question's not answered, or you think of something after the webinar has ended, then do email me at afoster@cruising.org. So leading this discussion this morning is Andy Harmer, SVP of Membership and Director of CLIA UK and Ireland. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning, Adele.
And joining him, I would like to welcome Mario Bunes from Swan Hellenic. Good morning, Mario.
Morning.
We also have Jeremy McKenna from Tradewind Voyages. Good morning, Jeremy.
Morning, Adele.
And we have John Warner from Vodahod. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Adele.
Welcome, everybody. And Andy, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Adele. Good morning. It's like a really bad reenactment of Boyzone or something on our webinar this morning. I don't know who's going to take lead vocals, but good morning to our illustrious panel. And good morning to everyone who's watching live this morning. Thank you very much for giving up your time to learn a little bit about some of the cruise lines who have recently joined CLIA, and it's always nice to have a broader and wider family to CLIA membership. So a big thank you to them for joining. Just a reminder, to Adele's point, we will have time for questions later, so please use the question facility so that you can ask some questions of our panel as we talk about their products in a little bit more detail. Where should we start? We should start with Jeremy, actually. Jeremy, good morning to you. So representing Tradewind Voyages, one of the newest cruise lines probably in the world. So what we'll do to start with is we'll give you sort of 3 or 4 minutes. Why don't you give us a quick overview of Tradewind Voyages?
Right, okay, lovely. Thanks, Andy. So firstly, Tradewind Voyages, our strapline, some of you may have seen, is called the Ocean's Journey, and that's been very deliberately chosen because the one thing that we wanted to be is unique. And the first thing that we set out when we established our company back early on this year, just before the pandemic, we chose our philosophy, which was to use nature to drive our ship and to design our itineraries. So we will be using the wind and the currents to follow the sun, and we're going to be incredibly unique in this, and we have an ambition to sail our ship 70% of the time. Now, our ship is called Golden Horizon. It is the largest 5-masted bark sailing ship in the world, and to put some scale on it, if you've ever been to see the Cutty Sark, she's about 3 times bigger than the Cutty Sark. She is a beautiful ship. She is a classic ship designed from an early 1911 ship called the SS France, and she has been built with classic but modern same as the 70 and the thing that we decided to 40 cabins allow us to give 1.7 staff to ratio, sorry, customer to passenger ratio, and we feel that we've got it right. We feel that on board, life on board, we will connect you to the ocean. Every cabin has a sea view. We have 40 balconies, cabins. We've got 4 suite staterooms. We'll have fantastic entertainment on board. We have a marina platform on board, so you can sail with kayaks, paddle boardings. We've got our own sailing boats. But the uniqueness of our voyages is we start off on May the 1st next year. We have 9 voyages, 7 through ex-UK, 7 out of Harwich, 2 out of Greenock, and we have some superb itineraries. We've travelled up around the whole of the UK. We go right up to the Arctic Circle, we go to the fjords, we go to the best of the Baltics, and probably one of the highlights is what we call the English South Coast, where we go along the South Coast, we turn up, and we'll be the highlight of Cowes Week before we head off to the Scilly Islands and we head to the Channel Islands. Now, after that, on the 28th of August, we head east. This is really when the ship will open up. We've got the wind behind us, we follow the sun, we head east, we head through the Suez Canal. So imagine the largest tall ship in the world heading through the Suez Canal, be quite a sight. We head through the Red Sea, down the coast of India, making our way all the way down to the Indonesian islands before we do a full circumnavigation of Australia on a sailing ship. We then head west through the Indian Ocean to do a circumnavigation of the whole of the Indian Ocean, heading over to Madagascar and East Africa before we head back to Bali. And that is our full 12-month voyage. Now, we will be heading to iconic places, but equally remote.
Jeremy, I think we're losing you a little bit.
We're gearing ourselves up for that.
We lost you a little bit, Jeremy.
Can you hear me now?
No, we can hear you now.
Did you lose me a bit? Okay. Have you got me back
We
now?
lost you a bit, but you're back. Welcome back. We're having a few technical issues this morning, I think. So
thank you.
But thank you for that. Some will say, Jeremy, this is an odd time of our cruise industry to launch a new cruise line. But obviously,
yeah, it's been a very interesting time. It's been a very interesting time. 2 weeks after we set up our office in Suffolk, we went into a complete lockdown, and so we had to build a cruise line from scratch. I mean, we've got this beautiful ship in Croatia that we went see months before we started, and yet starting a cruise line, creating a website, creating a brand, creating a booking engine, working with a travel agency, it's been great fun. But I mean, the travel community have been absolutely fantastic. They really have loved what we're doing here, and people see us as being completely relevant, particularly in the current terrible environment. You know, a small ship going to remote locations, wide open decks. You know, people want to connect with the ocean, and you know, so you know, we see ourselves as completely and absolutely relevant in this current environment, even more so than before.
And we'll come back to the onboard experience, etc., etc. But current plans are one ship, and that's your focus, and she'll be in the water next year.
Yep, she sails. Well, her first sailing from the UK will be the 1st of May next year. Excellent.
Good stuff. Thank you, Jeremy, for that quick overview. We'll come back to you, as I say, to talk in a little bit more detail about some of the other parts of the Tradewind Voyages products. So, and also, of course, we'll have some questions from our agents. Let's go to John. Morning, John. Are you on mute? Have we lost you?
Can you hear me now?
There we go. Tell you these technical issues.
I placed myself on mute. I was a good boy and I'd completely forgotten. So,
well done. You think we'd be good at this stuff by now after?
Yes, no, I'm sorry. Good morning, everybody.
All right. I love the picture behind you, by the way.
Grand Central Station, New York.
There we go. Doesn't that all make us want to
travel?
travel?
Sort of 3 to 5 minutes. I'm going to sort of do 2 topics, if I may. One is to introduce Vodahod, the Russian River Cruise company, for those of you not familiar. And then I'm going to do a quick plug for why you should actually do a river cruise in Russia if I've got time. So hopefully Andy won't.
I haven't got a buzzer.
Okay, so I'll start with Vodahod. So Vodahod has been around since 2004 and is the largest river cruise company in Russia. We've got a fleet of 26 ships. We cover 3, 4, and 5 stars, so we can cater to every budget. And actually, we were advised that we are the 3rd largest river cruise company in the world. So we obviously offer, for anyone interested in going to Russia, more choice, more departures, and more experiences and ports of call. To tell you a little bit about the company, it's under new management since 2018. The stakeholders that have come on board are extraordinarily entrepreneurial and innovative, and their drive behind the brand is not just to really open up Russia and offer new itineraries and new products. And I'll try and illustrate that. So out of the 26 vessels that we have, 11 are exclusively for the international market. The program is conducted on English. Staff are fully multilingual because we're sold throughout primarily Europe, so it's a cosmopolitan experience. And of that fleet of 11, 50% since 2018 have either been refurbished or built from new. We have further plans to have 2 new 160 passenger ships on the books for 2021. I'll talk about 2 ships in particular in a second. We're also planning to introduce a hovercraft experience on Lake Baikal, which, for those of you who don't know, is the lake with the most water on the planet, which is just above the Mongolian border. This year alone, we introduced the first 5-star river cruise vessel built in Russia for 60 years, which is the Mustai Karim. Unfortunately, no international clients have been able to travel on it for obvious reasons, but we actually concluded an agreement to produce her sister ship in 2022 this week. What else can I tell you? We also introduced another ship. We took one of our ships from the Volga, cut her up into sections, then transported her around to Siberia, which is no mean feat. A flight from Moscow to Siberia alone is 4.5 hours. We reassembled the bits, refurbished it into the first expedition river cruise, which is going up and down the Yenisei. And I think that people use the expression off the beaten path a lot in travel. Well, this itinerary is one that lives up to that moniker, because it's not just a part of the world where very few travelers have been. It's a part of the world where very few people have been. So I guess that gives you a bit of an overview that we're a fairly sizable organization. We're a very big Russian river cruise company, but we're now actually an international river cruise company aimed at attracting the Western traveler. We have big plans to have new itineraries every year. I've mentioned a couple, and hopefully that gives a bit of an overview of us. And I think Russia is one of those places which is both misunderstood and not really known a great deal about, and it's one of the most diverse and interesting countries on the planet. And to give you an idea of its complexity, if you take a flight from Moscow, which is on the western side, across to, say, Kamchatka on the far east, you're going to travel for 8.5 hours, go through 8 time zones. If you want to travel up and down the Volga River, which is the majority of our ships are based, that's 3.5 times the length of the UK. The country has over 100,000 rivers in it. So we've got a pretty big task in terms of trying to get itineraries and departures on all of those rivers, but we're certainly giving it a go. But the other thing I would sort of mention, I guess, about the product, it doesn't matter about the hardware. I mean, you can have the greatest hardware and you can have the best itinerary, but anyone who's been in cruise for a while will tell you that the most important thing is how you're made to feel when you're on board. And what I would say to that is that in our post-cruise surveys, our service and hospitality is marked at over 90%. So I guess what we're trying to do is we're trying to open and showcase Russia, but not just as a destination, but try and give people a little bit of flavour of the heart and soul of Russia.
Well done, John. Look at that, in time as well. And your facts on Russia, amazing. Who knew the Volga was that long?
Yes, absolutely.
So thank you, John. We'll come back to you very shortly, but very exciting destination in terms of river cruises and holidays in general. Morning, Mario. How are you?
Morning. Very good, thank you.
Good, good. So Swan Hellenic is a name that we know from old. So tell us a bit about Swan Hellenic.
Sure. So Swan Hellenic is obviously a heritage brand which started around about the 1950s and was very much well known for its guest speakers, being off the beaten track, deep exploration, and going to iconic and lesser known sort of destinations. And when the group I work for at the moment were in discussions about the naming of the product, the ships that they were building and what they wanted to do, it just smacked of the fact that actually it was so similar to Swan Hellenic and what they stood for, that it just made sense to purchase the brand and to resurrect this beautiful heritage brand. So as a company, we are sort of British in heritage, but very international in our outlook. So we have 6 offices currently globally. We only started about 10 months ago in terms of setting up everything. We have 2 ships which are being built at the moment, the first arriving in the UK in November 2021 for heading down to Antarctica. Both of the sister ships are small in size. There are 152 guests per ship. And we'll be going on 42 different itineraries over 21 and 2022, which will touch by the end or beginning of 2023, we'll be touching 7 continents in total. So it's really exciting. So our cruise will be from sort of Antarctica and doing the season down there and heading up to New Zealand. We'll be doing a lot of unique itineraries, really sort of focused on sort of Russia and the Far East. And also we'll be having some really unique itineraries that will go via so Russian Far East down through to Dudinka, where we'll be able to join onto river cruises and really start to experience the beauty of the land in Siberia and the Yenisei River. So really looking at how we work those together. But we also have some beautiful itineraries around Indonesia, Papua New Guinea. It's going to be a really exciting sort of time. And our 2 ships that we're building at the moment, they are PC5 ice strengthened hulls. So what that means is they'll be able to have a longer season and go deeper into exploration on the Arctic zones we go to, the polar regions. The ships themselves have got 9 decks, but plenty of outdoor space. Can you just imagine sat in a sauna with beautiful floor to ceiling sort of windows, looking at the passing landscape? It's just one of these things that you don't get to do very often. And or even being in the pool as well, and just looking as the land goes by. It's just a really beautiful setting. The ships themselves are at the sort of 5-star sort of level, and we're trying to position ourselves very much about sophisticated elegance through design and through the service that you have on board. That gives you a pretty good rough sort of overview of the brand, but obviously open to a lot of questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Exciting time to launch Swan Hellenic, and so it's 2 ships on order.
2 ships, the first one arriving November 21, the second one arriving April, so hot off the heels.
Well, November 21 isn't that far away from a cruise perspective or from a holiday perspective, so that's exciting. And presumably she's under construction somewhere in the world.
In Helsinki at the moment, yes, we had the keel laying just over a week ago. Very exciting stuff. Unfortunately, we couldn't be there, of course, but yeah. It was a great event from what I could see, and we're looking to continue that. We've got the mock-up cabins that are almost finished as well. So at some point, as and when we can do, we're looking to take trade partners as well as journalists and so on over to Helsinki to see the ship. But we can all live in hope and look forward to the future of getting back to that.
Good stuff. Thank you very much. And just a quick reminder to people watching, there is a question box on the right-hand side. Please do ask some questions, whatever, and the most difficult questions obviously first, but let's send lots of questions for our panel today. That would be great. I think one of the things that is clear from the pictures that we've just heard is that all of your cruise products are very different to what we maybe should call mainstream cruising, or kind of some of that bigger ship cruising. Jeremy, you've worked in both more mainstream cruising, but also now for Tradewind Voyages. So is this a natural progression for some people into this smaller ship or off the beaten track destination?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's yes, I imagine that some people who've had experience of being on the ocean on the large cruise ships would want to come and see a real sailing ship and feel the experience of a sailing ship, because the difference from and I found this, the difference from sailing on a really large cruise line to this ship is quite different and quite unique. So example being when the ship is under sail, you can hear all the noise of all of the sails going up. Then all of a sudden it goes very quiet. As the wind catches, then it all goes quiet, the sails go taut, and you actually feel the ship lift out and get taken forward. And that's going to be probably a huge, unique experience for a lot of people. So yes, it is. We're expecting. Typically, our guests are going to be anywhere between 45 to 70, but you've got to be fit to come on our ship, because some of the locations we get to, we'll be getting you into, our power boats, and we'll be turning up onto beaches, a lot of beach landing. So you've got to be fit and healthy. So I think this will really work with people who want to be connected to the ocean, who love the sea, something that's really authentic. And real adventure, because our itineraries are very, very adventurous. So yes, natural progression, I would say.
But also, presumably, it means that you can attract people who've never cruised before, who are looking for something different from a normal holiday.
Absolutely. So people that want to tick that bucket list. I mean, example, we've got one voyage that goes all the way across the Indian Ocean, and right across the Indian Ocean, we're going to be dropping the back of the ship down, and people will be able to swim in the middle of the Indian Ocean. And how many times could you sail thousands of miles from anywhere? And then we'll sail on to Mauritius, and then we'll go to Madagascar, and then we'll go to Tanzania for a safari. So this will attract people who like sailing, but also like adventure as well.
Sounds good. And presumably, John, in terms of Vodahod, there's a need to sell the destination as much as the river cruise product itself.
Yeah, I think that there's a bit of a demystification of Russia that needs to go on. I mean, in the 90s, you used to have an awful lot of people would travel to Russia on a tour operator, and I think the country between now and then has undergone massive transformation. Anyone who's been to Moscow will tell you it's a world-class city. It's cleaner than Singapore. It's moves on time, and it's perhaps not what people imagine. So we have to do an education program, and I think one of the things that perhaps has been something of an objection for people coming and doing a river cruise in Russia is that there's been a fairly protracted and bureaucratic visa process. The visa is going to be removed from the 1st of the 1st next year. It's going to move to an ETA. What I can't tell you right here and right now is what list of countries are going to be included and not included. That is still to be published, but the statute has been placed on the books. It gets ratified in October and becomes law on the 1st. So if that's removed for the majority of nations, it will be as easy to go to Russia as it is to get an ETA to go to Canada. So I think that will be very helpful. And then secondly, anybody who is an experienced or interested in river cruise or is experienced in river cruise, the things that people look for: art, history, culture, food, locals, etc. Russia has that and more. And I would suggest to people that actually it might turn out to be the best kept secret when people take a trip to Russian river cruise. The feedback that we get from people that it's amazed at the quality of the service that we provide, but absolutely wowed by what they've experienced in Russia.
And presumably people will potentially do longer voyages with you or longer holidays to Russia just because it may be the first time they've been to that destination.
Yeah, I mean, our trip down the Yenisei, I mean, to get there, you've got to route via one of the gateways, then there's a 4-and-a-bit-hour flight, and then if you want to do the full trip down the Yenisei, it's 11 days, and then you might want to top and tail it with St. Petersburg and Moscow, and then if you wanted to go down to Astraheim, so you could spend, and that's just a tiny section of what you could see in Russia. So yes, we get quite a few people from down under who come and do 3-4 weeks just because of the sheer scale of what's on offer.
Yeah, you've sold it to me already this morning, John. It sounds like a fascinating country I've never been to.
Okay, we'll come in next year, Andy, for sure.
Sounds good. Mario, in terms of Swan Hellenic, are you similarly expecting to get that very much to Jeremy's point, that kind of drift from people who are already ocean cruise who want to try a different cruise experience?
Yes, I think we obviously having 152 passenger ship, the personal experience you get, we've got 120 crew on board. It's a very sort of good sort of ratio that we're looking for on that side. And the experience we have is really more about sort of cultural expedition, sort of cruising and understanding the environment you're in and learning as you go through, and really just having that experience, that once in a lifetime experience, whether it be down to Antarctica, up to the Arctic or the Russia Far East pieces, but just getting something back that you bring back with you. And it allows you some amazing storytelling to all of your friends when you get back, and family, just to kind of experience it that they would never have done.
Yeah, sounds good. You all three have excursions and shore programs that will be very different. Jeremy, you spoke about swimming in the middle of the Indian Ocean, for example, and John, you sold the chance to explore Russia. So how different are those shore experiences going to be? I don't mind where we start. John, why don't we start with you? What do those shore experiences look like?
Yeah, I think we've got about 90 different ports of call and something like 250 included excursions, and that's not including the optional excursions if people want to do some private things like go to the Bolshoi or what have you, all of which I should add fully commissionable to anybody if they're pre-booked. You know, I think we
shameless plugging.
And of course, shameless plugging. So we have ship sizes from 100 all the way up to over 300. So we break our shore excursions down in terms of group size. We tend to have a lot of people that travel in a group from one particular brand or agency. So if they do so, we'll provide a leader for them, and they'll have almost like their own private mini shore excursion. We do everything that you can possibly imagine, from theatre, museum, art galleries, local restaurants. We're doing a lot of homestays, proving very popular. And we also have some with the Mustai Karim, we've got a program that no other company offers in Russia, where we make some stops on ports that no one's ever been to before, which are exclusive to us. So we're constantly looking at different ways of reinvigorating what people do offshore. We're trying to make it much more local, I think, in focus. And yeah, I think with something upwards of 250 excursions to choose from, we've got plenty of choice for everybody.
And a lot of people are surprised at how active river cruise holidays are, because that's quite a lot of course, you get a chance to relax on board, but there's lots of opportunities to stretch your legs, or I don't know if you have cycles on board, but also there's it's a packed schedule.
Yeah, well, we have a full program for all of our trips, and some people choose to dip in and dip out, and you know, it's a holiday after all. What we tend to find is that there's so much going on that people tend to not want to miss out, so we're pretty much fully booked for everything. But if someone just fancies reading a book and watching the world go by for a morning, then obviously they're more than welcome to do that.
And Jeremy, you spoke about attracting more active people as well, because it's quite an active holiday. Can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, so yeah, it is a very active holiday, but you know, with over 220 ports of call, you know, each port of call will have their own series of shore excursions. So I've lost count of how many we'll be putting on offer, but it will be a full range that will cater for the very active people. So, example, you know, our circumnavigation of Australia next year, people will be able to have Christmas Day on the Whitsunday Islands on the Barrier Reef, and we'll be able to do diving on Christmas Day to take their paddy course, as an example. And as we go around the rest of Australia, you know, we'll be hitting the wine regions, so we'll have food and wine tours, you know, up the Margaret River, on the Margaret River, you know, in the southwest. Then as we go up, we'll have wildlife visits, so you know that you'll have dolphins, all sorts of the visit to Kangaroo Island as an example, and then we head up towards Komodo, where obviously you'll see the Komodo dragons and things like that. So yeah, we'll have a huge extensive short excursion. But the other thing we'll do is that, and particularly because we're going to remote places, is we've got a number of powerboats that what we can do is just take people to, not to where we're going, but around the corner to a different beach, right, or to a different island. that's not on the itinerary. So these will be the captain's delights. So the captain will be delighting passengers and doing some very different things when we get there. As I said earlier on, dropping the back of the ship down in the middle of the ocean so people can swim and have fun and sail. Real experience.
Sounds terrible. All of that just sounded really terrible. I'm looking out of the window, the greyness and the misery of the UK in October, and you're talking about some amazing experiences.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Someone's got to do it, I guess.
Well, Mario, tell us a bit about your shore experience. Obviously different when you're in places like the polar regions, presumably.
They are indeed, but we've got a lot. I think when we look at our products and what we're offering, a lot of our offering is really inclusive for everything. So wherever we go, every port of call we have, there's at least one complimentary shore excursion, as well as an additional ones that we're currently working through at the moment. When it comes to mobility, is obviously very key for a lot of our guests that will be going on these trips. So with the number of Zodiacs we have on board, we have a number of hard-hulled Zodiacs as well to ensure a smoother ride and more comfortable experience for older guests that come with a less mobile as well. And then when you get through to the rest of the world sort of itineraries as you go through, you'll really sort of be fully immersed into the destinations you go through, where we'll be meeting indigenous tribes. Again, similar to, as Jeremy was mentioning about the food experience and the wine experience, is exactly what we're offering as well. And cultural cruising nowadays has a real different sort of connotation. It's not all about sitting down and having the lectures. Of course, we'll have very well-known lecturers on board that we're now signing through for all of our itineraries, but they're also going to be the experiences that you'll have. And our from a marketing perspective, our strapline is really about see what others don't, but it's really a case of see what others don't, eat what others don't, do what others don't, experience what others don't. And it's really going to take form over the coming months as we continue to really create our program.
You mentioned food. So John, the food in Russia, it's obviously, enjoying local cuisine is always an important part of any holiday or any cruise experience. So how Russian and how local is the food and dining experience on Vodahod?
So we cater for both. Obviously, we're very much trying to promote the local cuisine and source local ingredients and bring that element, and a lot of people enjoy that. But equally, we have as many people who come on board wish to be able to have some of the international staples. So we produce both. When people are dining off the ship or we have an experience, then we choose the restaurants particular that we think it will cater both for the international client, but will also be very illustrative of local cuisine. I think that Russia, again, perhaps is a little bit like London used to, or England used to be about 20 years ago, where you couldn't get a decent meal for love nor money. If you go to Russia, the food is off the charts. I have to say it's world class, the cuisine that's now offered throughout Russia, and I think people have no awareness of that. And I think when people come back, it's the element that people probably most mention as being the thing that surprised them in the best way the most.
Yeah. Good stuff. Thank you very much indeed. Adele, I think we've had a lot of questions in this morning, so would it be a good time to come to you for some of the questions we've had in?
Absolutely, and I just want to say what fascinating.
I know. I want to do them all, obviously.
So do I. Three really, really different companies. Thank you for all those insights, gentlemen. We have had a number of questions in. Some of them have actually been covered, but I'll quickly whiz through them for you. So one from Jane Middleton, who's one of our regular viewers. And this is for John. Does Vodahod have a cruise that takes in Moscow and St. Petersburg? And do people need a visa if they're on a river cruise?
Sorry, can you just repeat that, Adele? Was that do the trips go between Moscow and St. Petersburg?
So can you do both?
Is there a cruise that takes in both Moscow and St. Petersburg?
Yeah, so that is if you like the classic cruise, and we have trips that do that in 8 days, and then 11 days and 14 days. But I would absolutely say anyone who wants to go to Russia definitely wants to see the two sort of jewels, if you like, of St. Petersburg and Moscow. So yes is the answer to that question. You can choose a number of different options of how to do it, but we'll definitely make sure you see both those. In terms of the visa, if we're talking depending on the nationality. If it's the UK at the moment, you need a visa to fly into to Moscow, but as I said, we're hoping that on the 1st of the 1st 21 that the UK is on that list of countries that doesn't, and we can apply for an e-visa, electronic travel.
And when do we get clarity on whether the UK is included in that, John? You may have mentioned it and I may have missed the date.
No, not at all. All that's happened so far at the start, I think on the 3rd of September, it was put on the statute books as happening, and all it mentions is that there will be more details to follow, but we don't know when that is. My understanding is that it's ratified next in Parliament, which is taking place in October, so probably after that process between now and then there'll be a list of countries, much like, you know, the rest of the world these days.
Sure. Good stuff. Thanks, John.
Fabulous. I'm just going to stick with John just for a second. Sorry, gentlemen, we'll come to you in just a minute. But the next question is from Scott Anderson. How do clients get to the ship on the Yenisei River?
Morning, Scott.
Yeah, hi, Scott. How are you? Yeah, very good question. So it is not the easiest part of the world to get to. You'll have to fly into Moscow. We will offer, there's a scheduled flight that will fly you in and out of the 2 gateways, one on either end. Potentially we'll also offer a charter to take care of that, because it is a very remote place. So we need to be able to make sure that we get our group of people there. But most people will, wherever they're flying into, will have at least one overnight in Moscow before taking that trip, and vice versa on the way back.
Can I just add a supplementary to that? Are these year-round destinations? Because of course parts of Russia get very chilly.
Well, yeah, so Siberia, here's a useless fact for you, coldest place on the planet, minus 62 degrees. So we actually don't run trips during that time, you'll be pleased to hear. Generally, the season is actually very short in Russia. Starts in May and ends in October. I mentioned our new 5-star ship, the Mustai Karim. That's actually got the ability to travel a little bit in open water, not quite ocean-based. So we've actually extended the season, taken her down to the south through Astrakhan, and then she's now doing a trip around Rostrodon. So she goes to November, and then everybody is in bed for the winter, and then we emerge out of hibernation at the end of April, start the engines, make sure that everything's clean and ready to go for May.
Cool, thank you.
Fabulous. We have a question from Mario, again from Scott. Is the brand aimed at the UK market specifically?
The brand is British in heritage, but international outlook. We have a global presence and strategy in play at the moment, having opened up offices across the globe. But the ships themselves are going to have a very, very international sort of feel when you get on board, with some British nuances that we're looking to still then keep in keeping throughout the season.
Okay.
A bit of a mix, but mainly English-speaking audience, or it can be international.
Well, it's international, but English-speaking is going to be the on-board sort of experience. Cuisine will be international. Our lecturers will be in English, but also for if we have a large group, for example, from other countries, we'll also have local speakers there as well. But it is predominantly English-speaking on board.
Thank you.
Great. We've had a question from James Hill. Good morning, James.
James.
Tradewinds are aiming for the 45 to 70-year-olds. He said, as a 70-year-old agent, he has plenty of clients who are still fit and agile. Will you still allow the 70+ on board?
Absolutely. Yeah, bring them on. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, we don't have, you know, this is a classic sailing ship. You know, we don't have elevators on board. You know, we don't have you know, accessible cabins. But what we can guarantee is a fantastic experience. And if you're fit, you will have a lovely, lovely time. So that's sort of just generically, you know, 45 to 70. But you know, I mean, one of my good mates is 75, and you know, he gives me a good run for my money.
Can I just ask how much of the onboard experience is outdoor? Because it sounds like you go to a lot of very beautiful outdoor places. So is there dining outboard? Is there, you know, what happens?
So we've got, so for dining specifically, we've got a 2-tier restaurant inside, which is just magnificent. Have a look at the website, it's just stunning. There is dining facilities outside as well, because we've got a new grill bar that we're building at the moment, actually on the ship, when we're ready to sail in May, and so people will be able to dine outside as well. So yeah, I mean, it's a very active ship. I mean, the decks are enormous, you know, so you know, but it's a working ship, you know, so you can really get involved on the ship as well. We've got two steerage positions on the main deck that passengers can actually steer the ship, you know, and help maneuver under supervision. I was had as a guest here from our sailing master, but our guests will be able to, you know, to move the ship, you know, to make sure that we connect the wind properly. You know, we'll have an open bridge policy, so people can go in the bridge and speak to the captain and, you know, discuss all these sorts of things. You know, our guest speakers, our lecturers will do astronavigation. So for an example, you know, on some of the voyages, you know, people will be lying down on the deck at night, looking at the stars, having astronavigation courses, yeah, as an example. So yeah, it's a very active ship. You've got 3 swimming pools. So yeah, very outdoors.
Thank you. Adele, are you there?
Apologies, I am here. I did the same thing and put myself on mute, so I didn't interrupt Jeremy. Just another question here from Mario. It's an interesting question from Klaus. Mario, what is, from your perspective, the most interesting and challenging itinerary out of your 42 cruise offers?
Wow.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. Could you say that again? What was the most?
What is, from your perspective, the most interesting and challenging itinerary out of your 42 cruise offers?
Oh, that's a great question. It's a very difficult one to sort of answer on that side. When you say challenging, it depends on what you mean by challenging, but they're very varied. So we have obviously the Antarctic season that we start off with, but some, for me, the favorite ones that I would look at that I really would like to try myself would be the sort of Far East Russia, where you sort of continue through from Nome through to Otaro in Japan. That gives you a real sort of across so many different sort of varying destinations. Would be one of the ones I'd love to try. I also want to try obviously the Philippines that we're going through, but there's the British Isles one. The British Isles one would be very different as well in terms of whether it be sort of the horticultural sort of look and feel. It could also be for the whiskey tasting experiences that we'll be offering. It's a real different side. But for me, top of the list for me that I really would love to try obviously would be Antarctica, as that would be a once in a lifetime experience for myself and my kids.
Huge bucket list destination for lots of people, Antarctica, absolutely. Oh, thank you, Mario. Klaus did actually ask another question to John, and he says, John, I have seen one of your 5-star river cruise vessels, which seems to be more than comparable and competitive to Western river cruise vessels. Will you offer cruise with plenty of time to visit, i.e. St. Petersburg and other places overnight? You did briefly mention the overnight stays in St. Petersburg, but if you could expand on that.
Yeah, well, I'll answer the first point. I think, as I said, the new management team looked at the fleet when we came on board in 2018 and felt that it needed to be improved and upgraded, and it needed to match the hardware that's in Europe. I mean, Andy will tell you that if you look at the river cruise vessels and the brands in Europe, the standard is exceptional, and Russia has to meet that. So we've embarked on a program of doing that. The 2 first 5-star ships, I think, have been a great start, and we've got 260 passengers next. Then we've got another sister ship. So we're definitely moving into that end of the market because we think that's where the river cruise passenger, that's the sort of level they want. And in terms of answering about Moscow and St. Petersburg, yeah, we have the ships in both for a period of time, and we use those as a base for people to explore both, if that makes sense. So it's not just in between, you actually get time on board, but we are stationary, so you can actually go and visit both. And of course, if people want to stay additional time, we can organise all of that as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I think it's very important that people get to see those 2 iconic cities as well when they're there. I did want to stay just with John for a second. Tim Beggs has asked the question, will you be taking bookings from both tour operators for groups and individual bookings direct from agents?
Yes. Is the answer that
quickest answer?
That's marvellous.
I can go on.
Thank you very much. No, yes is great. And if Tim needs to know anything else, he can get in touch with.
Just give it a shout. I'd be happy to discuss it in person with them.
Fabulous. A quick question for Jeremy, again from Scott. Scott, thank you so much for all your questions this morning. Jeremy, does the ship have stabilizers? How steady is she? I've sailed on the Royal Clipper and that moves about a little bit.
Yeah, well, this is quite a little bit larger than the Royal Clipper, yeah. So she has ballast stabilizers, but the way in which the ship has been built is very different to how large cruise ships have been built, which need sort of the four stabilizers. So the ship has been built to cut through the waves. She is a sailing ship, and therefore of course you're on the ocean, you're going to get movement, but the ship is going to be cutting through the water, so you'll feel far less movement than you would anticipate. And when we get the sails up, it's not like a sailing ship that you see in the ocean off Cowswick that are heeling over at 45 degrees. That's not going to happen because the way in which we plan our itineraries is that the wind is going to be behind us pretty much all the time, and so that effectively it's on the beam, so it's going to push the ship forward through the sea and cutting through the sea. So there will be movement because this is a sailing ship, but not quite what you might imagine it would be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just stick with you, Jeremy. We have another question that's come in from Paul Barber. He said, will the ex-UK cruises continue in later years, or is it just for the inaugural season?
Well, super question actually. It is for the inaugural season. The 9 showcase voyages that we have, a fantastic opportunity for the agents to come and see the ship all around the UK and all around Ireland. We're also having on the 28th of April, we're going to have an agent showcase voyage from Portsmouth to Harwich, because she's going to port out of Harwich. And then, as I said earlier on, then she heads east. I'll be honest with you, we are dictated by the wind and the currents, and we're going to head east. Our first year we'll be ending up back in Singapore, and then we're going to head north. We're going to head north up to Japan, up to Russia. There we go, John might meet you up there, and then over to Alaska, and then we're going to head right the way down the Americas before we get to Santiago, then cut straight across the Pacific Islands because the wind is right behind us, circumnavigation of New Zealand. That will take us to the end of, that will take us into 23. At that point, we haven't quite worked out exactly where we're going to go from there. We could actually head back through the Panama Canal, across the Atlantic, back into Europe, or we could head west again, because that's across the Indian Ocean, because that's where the winds will take us. What I would say is that we are in design of our second ship. So we're not going to just be a one-ship fleet. We will have 4 by 2027. We're in design for our next ship, which will be slightly larger again. So it'll be the next biggest tall ship in the world. It will have fewer passengers on board. The luxury level will be increased. But what I want to do, and I've even told this to the owners, that when we get this ship, which I'm hoping will be within the next couple of years, that we will do the same thing again. We'll have her in the UK for inaugural, and that's really important for us, is because this is a British ship, so the vast majority, so we're selling in the UK market, so this is a UK ship for the UK market. I'm opening up the Australian market because Australians and the Brits get on very well when they cruise, but it will be predominantly UK based. But I hope that sort of answers the question. So it depends where the wind takes us.
Yeah, the way the wind blows. And Mario, presumably your ships will also touch the UK.
There will be. We have a couple of crews that are circumnavigating the UK, across to Ireland as well. So yes, they will be. And obviously the inaugural will be here in November 21 in London on the Thames, which will be an exciting launch. We're looking to obviously invite all of our agents to join us.
And John, you have a slight logistical issue of getting a ship into the UK, presumably.
No immediate plans to come to the UK, but it's interesting. On this 3 panels, 3 very interesting brands, but what I'm hearing is that all roads lead to Russia. So maybe we'll bring everybody in.
And I shouldn't say this because Adele's listening, but I can feel a Russian event coming up for our travel agents and for CLIA. So Adele, you'll have to start practicing some Russian. But
Myra, I can Goriki Melinov Pajolsta. That's all I can say, which I think is please speak more slowly in Russian. It could mean something
we
completely
may need
different.
that. Okay, we shouldn't carry on with this. Adele, I think we've got time for one more question, please.
Okay, there is a really good question, I think, which will cover everybody. This is from Lydia Solid, and she says, great webinar, thank you very much. Which port of call really stands out for each person from all of their different itineraries, maybe because it surprised them for some sort of reason?
There's lots of deep thought
Jeremy,
happening.
do you want to go first?
Well, I've got 226 to choose from.
You're showing off now.
I'm showing off again. Oh crikey! I would say Christmas Day on the Great Barrier Reef is probably one. We've got three days in the Whitsunday Islands and 3 days on the Great Barrier Reef, and that will be a lifetime's experience. So I'd pick Great Barrier Reef, Christmas Day.
We'll see you there. Thank you, Mario.
Again, but I think if I had to highlight it, probably our first cruise, which is the Antarctica Solar Eclipse cruise. So not only will you be going to a once-in-a-lifetime destination of Antarctica, but you'll also get the experience of the solar eclipse partway through the cruise, and that is an experience just as a one-off that you'll ever get.
That's quite a show to put on for guests, isn't it?
Start planning now.
Yeah, John.
Yeah, I think I'm going to head back to Siberia. If you, one of our trip there will allow, one of the days is go around an area called the Putapatarana, which is, if it was in Europe, would be more popular than you know, the Grand Canyon. It's an enormous nature reserve. The helicopter ride lasts for 8 hours, and you'll see a wildlife that no one on the planet has ever seen before. That's pretty spectacular. That's a real bragging rights excursion.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Thank you. Just very quickly, and thank you, Adele, and thank you everyone for the questions, but very quickly, if travel agents want some more information, what's the best place for them to head to? Jeremy, where can they head to get more information?
Our website, tradewindvoyages.com.
Perfect, thank you.
Contact details on there.
Great, thank you. Mario.
Our website as well, swanhellenic.com. There's a travel partners section on there, and the navigation bar. Feel free to ask any questions there as well.
Excellent, thank you. John.
We offer a much more personal service at Vodahod, so it's john.warner@vodahod.com.
There we go, good stuff. Well, look, thank you, Adele, for hosting us this morning. I should remind everyone we have our next webinar, which is on Monday at 4 p.m, a slightly later time, and that's a global webinar for our travel agent community in North America and in Europe, where we'll be focusing purely on river cruise. So join us on Monday for that. But in the meantime, huge thanks, John, Mario, and Jeremy. Thank you so much for joining us. We wish you the very best of luck over the coming months and years as your projects bloom and develop, and we'll watch with a great deal of interest. But from Adele and I, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much
indeed. Thank you. Yeah, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.